Zara Mitchell made exactly 3 mistakes that night. The first was letting her friend talk her into a glass of wine to shake off a bad week. The second was slipping into the gold satin set she'd bought for herself months ago and never worn. The third, and most catastrophic, was not double-checking the name on the screen before she hit send. His reply came in under a minute. Not a question, not confusion, just 4 words. "You have my attention." She stared at the screen, heart hammering. "Wrong number," she typed back immediately. "Please delete that. Forget you ever saw it." 3 dots appeared. Then his response landed like a stone in still water. "I don't forget things, Zara. I'll be at your door by 10 tomorrow morning. Don't go anywhere." She threw her phone across the bed like it had bitten her. How did he know her name? She blocked the number, told herself it was some random creep, and spent the next hour convincing herself the whole thing was over. It was not over. At 10 the next morning, her buzzer rang. She ignored it. It rang again. Then a voice came through the intercom, deep, unhurried, almost bored. "Ms. Mitchell, Mr. Shin sent me. He's parked outside. He'd like a word." That's when her whole body went cold. Because the name Shin Jae-won wasn't just a name in this city. It was a warning. If you're already hooked, hit that subscribe button right now and drop a comment below telling me what you think Zara should have done. Open that door or disappeared forever. 48 hours before all of this, Zara had been quietly falling apart in her apartment on the 14th floor of a building she could barely afford. Her job at the architecture firm was fine. Her social life was functional. But her confidence had been quietly bleeding out for 7 months, ever since Marcus had ended things with a shrug and the words, "I just don't think you push yourself, Zara. You play it too safe." She had replayed that sentence so many times, it had carved grooves into her self-esteem. So when her best friend Jade called on a Friday night and said, "Stop moping. Put on something that makes you feel like yourself. Take a photo, not for anyone else, just for you," Zara had actually listened. The wine helped. The gold satin set had been sitting in her drawer since February, tags still attached, bought for a Valentine's Day that Marcus had cancelled last minute to go to a work event she later found out didn't exist. She put it on. She took the photo. And honestly, she looked stunning. Powerful. Like a woman who had finally stopped apologizing for existing. She meant to send it to Jade with a voice note saying, "I think I'm back." Her thumb hit send, and her stomach dropped 3 seconds later when she realized what she had done. The contact she'd selected wasn't Jade. It was the number saved in her phone as Building Concierge, the shared line she'd used 2 weeks ago to report a broken hallway light. Oh no. No, 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 no! She scrambled to recall the message. Too late. The blue ticks appeared almost instantly. Someone had seen it. Then the typing indicator appeared, and Zara felt her entire soul leave her body. "Wrong number. I'm so sorry. Please just delete it." She sent it before she even finished breathing. The reply that came back was not what she expected. "You have my attention. I'll be at your door by 10 tomorrow morning. Don't go anywhere." What kind of building concierge talked like that? She blocked the number, poured the rest of the wine down the sink, and sat on her bathroom floor for 15 minutes, reminding herself to breathe. Probably just some overly confident maintenance worker. He didn't know which unit was hers. She was fine. Everything was fine. She did not sleep. The next morning crawled by in slow, excruciating agony. She checked her door camera app 4 times, paced her kitchen twice, and had almost fully convinced herself she'd blown it out of proportion by 9:55. Then, at exactly 10 o'clock, her buzzer rang, and all of that convinced herself evaporated instantly. She crept to the intercom panel. "Ms. Mitchell, Mr. Shin sent me. He's parked outside. He'd like a word." The name landed like a fist. Shin Jae-won. She'd heard it before. Not personally, but in the way you hear the name of a storm before it hits. He was Korean, ruthless, and extraordinarily wealthy in ways that no one asked too many questions about. His name appeared in business headlines tied to development deals, import logistics, and private acquisitions. His name appeared in other conversations too, quieter ones, in corners of the city where people spoke carefully. "I don't know any Mr. Shin," she called through the intercom, voice cracking only a little. "You have the wrong apartment." The man on the other end paused as if she had said something mildly amusing. "Mr. Shin owns this building, Miss Mitchell. He knows exactly which apartment is yours. He also asked me to tell you that he has no intention of frightening you. He would simply like the opportunity to apologize in person. 1 hour, that's all he's asking. After that, if you want him to disappear, he disappears." Zara pressed her back against the wall and stared at the ceiling. This was insane. She should call the police. She should call Jade. She should do literally anything except what her body was apparently already moving toward doing. She pressed the intercom button. "Give me 15 minutes. She could not believe she had said that. She changed 3 times, settled on wide-leg trousers and a fitted black top. Professional, but not trying too hard. She told herself it wasn't because she was nervous. She lied to herself about this completely. Her hands shook as she grabbed her keys, but she made herself move toward the door before the logical part of her brain could win the argument. The man waiting in her hallway was broad-shouldered and expressionless, dressed in a charcoal suit that cost more than her monthly grocery budget. He gave her a single glance, professional, scanning, and then gestured toward the elevator. "This way." The lobby was quiet. A black car sat at the curb with the engine running. The man opened the rear door, and Zara looked inside for the first time. Shin Jae-won did not look like what she had imagined from the whispered version of his name. He was younger, maybe 34, 35. Sharp jaw, dark eyes that moved to her immediately and stayed there. He wore a navy suit and a look of complete composure, like a man who had been waiting exactly as long as he expected to wait, and not a second more. He spoke before she could. "You look like you're deciding whether to run." "I'm deciding whether this is the worst decision I've ever made," she said. His expression shifted, not quite a smile, but the possibility of one. "Get in. I'll buy you coffee. If you still want to leave after that, Kwon will take you wherever you like." It was not exactly a command. It was not exactly a choice either. It sat somewhere between the two, an open door with weight behind it. Zara got in the car. The door clicked shut, and the city began to slide past the windows. Shin turned to look at her properly now, unhurried, like a man who had learned long ago that patience was its own kind of power. So she said, because silence felt more loaded than conversation, "You own my building, among others, and you got my name from the tenant records." "From the concierge line, yes." He held her gaze. "I want you to know I understand how this looks. I'm not in the habit of tracking down women who contact me by accident." Then why am I in this car? Because you interest me. He said it simply, without performance. Most people who accidentally reach me are either terrified or try to leverage it. You blocked me. That was unexpected. She stared at him.
That's why you tracked me down. Because I blocked you. That and the photo was genuinely stunning. Heat rose to her face before she could stop it. That was a mistake. You've already said that. His voice was even, calm. You haven't apologized for the photo itself, only for sending it to the wrong person. There's a difference. Zara opened her mouth and closed it again. He was right, and she hated that he was right. The car pulled up outside a building in Koreatown, a private members club tucked behind frosted glass doors that Zara had walked past 100 times without knowing what it was. Kwon opened her door. Shin stepped out first and waited, and Zara noticed he didn't offer his hand, didn't assume she needed help. He simply waited to see what she would do. She stepped out on her own. The interior was quiet, low-lit, elegant without being loud about it. A corner table was already set with coffee and pastries, like someone had known she was coming. She supposed someone had. "Tell me what you actually do," she said once they were seated, because something about the way he'd phrased things in the car had left a door open she needed to walk through. Shin wrapped both hands around his coffee cup. "I run import and logistics companies, property development, private equity." "You're being vague, deliberately." He looked at her steadily. "There are parts of my business that exist in the space between legal and illegal. I won't insult your intelligence by pretending otherwise. I have significant resources, significant reach, and significant enemies." He paused. "Does that answer your question or raise more?" "Both," she said honestly. "Good. That means you're paying attention." They talked for 2 hours. She hadn't planned to stay more than 30 minutes, but Shin asked questions like he actually wanted the answers. About her architecture work, about why she'd chosen it, about what she wanted her life to look like in 5 years versus what it currently looked like. He listened in a way that felt almost uncomfortable, thorough, attentive, like her words were worth filing away. She found herself asking, "Why are you single?" before she could stop herself. His eyebrow lifted slightly. "What makes you assume I am?" She felt the colour rise in her throat. "Are you not?" "I'm unattached." He said it carefully. "I've been deliberately unattached for 3 years, because the women who pursue me want proximity to what I represent, not who I am." He studied her. "You don't know what I represent yet. You're just reacting to me." "That's terrifying," she said. "It's honest." She looked at him across the table. "You're still terrifying." "You blocked me." He said it again, like it still amazed him. "Everyone who has my number keeps it, saves it. They don't block it." "Maybe your number needed to be blocked." His lips curved into an actual smile this time, brief and real. "Maybe it did." When Kwon drove her home 2 hours later, Zara sat in the back seat alone and tried to sort through what she felt. She should feel unsettled. She did feel unsettled. But beneath that was something warmer and more dangerous, the specific feeling of being fully seen by someone who was very good at looking. Shin texted her that evening from a new number. "Same person. Just so you don't block this one too." She laughed out loud in her empty apartment, and then she saved the contact. What followed was 3 weeks she hadn't seen coming. Shin was consistent without being suffocating.
He sent her coffee from a place across the city because she'd mentioned offhand that she liked their single-origin beans. He took her to a private architectural tour of a pre-war building he was restoring and watched her fall in love with the original terrazzo floors in a way that clearly delighted him. He asked for her opinion on design decisions and actually took notes. He was also, she came to understand, a man with two distinct faces. In public, he was controlled, exact,
with a stillness that made people around him choose their words carefully. Alone with her, he became something more layered. He was dry and unexpectedly funny. He argued with her about things just to see how she'd defend her position. He remembered everything she told him and brought it back later in ways that made her feel like she'd been heard. "You're staring," he said one evening. They were in his downtown apartment, Zara reviewing site drawings on the couch, while he worked at his desk. "You do something with your hands when you're working through a problem," she told him. "You don't realize you're doing it." He looked up. "I don't fidget." "You don't call it fidgeting, but you do it." He held her gaze for a moment, then the corner of his mouth lifted. "You notice things." "I'm an architect. I look at structures." "Is that what I am to you?" She smiled without answering, which she knew drove him exactly the right kind of crazy. 2 days later, the first message appeared. Unknown number. "Gold suits you better in person." Wednesday's outfit was the right call. Zara had worn gold on Wednesday, to dinner with Shin. Someone had been watching. She showed him the message immediately. Shin read it once, his expression going completely neutral. The kind of neutral that was more alarming than anger. He handed the phone to Kwon without a word. Kwon disappeared. Shin turned back to her. "You're moving in here until we know who this is." Zara opened her mouth to argue. His expression didn't change. She moved her things that evening. More messages came over the following week. Photographs. Her leaving a coffee shop. Her at her office building. One taken from enough distance that she hadn't noticed anyone watching. Each message was more unsettling than the last, ranging from eerie observations to thinly veiled threats about what happened to people who got close to Shin Jae-won. Then Marcus called. She stared at his name for 4 rings. Something in her chest still reacted to it, not love, not even longing exactly, more like the phantom ache of an old injury. She answered. "Zara, hey. Look, I know this is out of nowhere." His voice was careful, rehearsed. "I've been doing some thinking about how I handle things between us. I wasn't fair to you. I'd like to apologize properly, in person, if you'll let me." She should have said no. Every newer, braver version of herself wanted to say no. But the part of her that had spent 7 months replaying his words about her playing it too safe needed something from this conversation. Needed to sit across from him and realize she had outgrown him completely. "1 coffee," she said. 1 hour. The place on 5th. That's it. When she told Shin, his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "You're going." "I need closure. This isn't something I'm asking permission for." He studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded once. "Kwon goes with you. He stays outside." She agreed. She told herself it was a reasonable compromise. Marcus was already there when she arrived, sitting with his hands wrapped around a cup like he was nervous. He stood when he saw her. She noticed immediately, with a clarity that surprised her, that he looked smaller than she remembered. Not physically, but in the way people shrink when you stop needing something from them. "You look incredible," he said. "Whatever you've been doing, it's working."
She sat down and folded her hands on the table. What did you want to say, Marcus? He went through it. The apology, the therapy, the realization that he'd been unfair, that he'd projected his own fears about ambition onto her, that the playing it safe comment had been cruel and wrong. He looked genuinely contrite. She listened and felt nothing except a low, quiet gratitude that she no longer needed this to be okay. I appreciate you saying it, she told him when he finished. I do, but I've moved on. I'm in a good place. I heard you're seeing someone. He smiled, and it almost reached his eyes. Is it serious? Very. Good for you. He reached across the table. Actually, can I borrow your phone for a second? I think I synced some old photos to your cloud by mistake, and I want to delete them before they disappear. Old shots from that weekend in Savannah, remember? She remembered. It had been a good weekend. She unlocked her phone and slid it across without thinking, watching as he scrolled with the ease of someone who knew exactly what he was looking for. Here we go. He tapped quickly, nodded. Just airdropping these to myself. Done. He handed it back with a smile. Thanks. They talked for another 20 minutes. Surface level. Easy. When she left, she felt clean, lighter. Like the last loose thread from that chapter had been snipped. What Zara didn't know was that in those 60 seconds, Marcus had installed sophisticated surveillance software on her device, law enforcement grade. Everything she typed, everywhere she went, every call she made was now being quietly routed to a server the FBI had been running for 3 months as part of a federal investigation into Shin Jae-won's operations. For 2 weeks, everything felt perfect. The messages from the unknown number stopped. Shin seemed to relax. They fell into something that felt dangerously close to a real life. Mornings where he taught her the Korean names for things she pointed at around the apartment. Evenings where she drafted designs at his kitchen table while he worked beside her. Nights where they peeled back all the careful layers they'd both built up and found something genuine underneath. You said something in your sleep last night, Shin murmured one morning. They were tangled in grey sheets, early light coming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. You said, the proportions are all wrong. He sounded almost fond. Even unconscious, you're critiquing architecture. She laughed against his shoulder. Did you just admit you watch me sleep? I notice things. His voice dropped, echoing her words back to her from weeks ago. She propped herself up to look at him. What do you notice? He was quiet for a moment, his dark eyes moving across her face. That you never ask for anything. He said it like it bothered him. That you assume your needs are inconvenient. That you're still unlearning someone else's version of you. Her throat tightened. Marcus. The man was an idiot, Shin said simply. You spent years trying to be quieter for someone who didn't deserve the loud version of you. She kissed him before the tears could become anything. It was Kwon who found it, a routine sweep of her phone 2 weeks after the coffee meeting. He brought the report to Shin without a word, and Shin read it once, then called her into the room. His expression was the controlled blankness she had come to recognize as fury, with the volume turned all the way down. Your phone has been compromised. Surveillance software. Installed roughly 2 weeks ago. Zara felt the floor shift. When? Kwon checked the metadata. 2 weeks ago, a Thursday afternoon. The coffee. Her mouth went dry. I gave him my phone. I gave Marcus my phone to get photos and he… June, she corrected herself. using Shin's given name the way she only did when things were serious. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." "I know you didn't." He crossed to her and took her face in his hands. "He used your trust, your need for resolution. He played it perfectly. His eyes were dark and still. But he will face consequences, not violent ones." Shin's jaw worked. "Please." She held his gaze. "If you hurt him, they win. They get exactly what they're building a case to prove. Handle it another way. Prove them wrong." He looked at her for a long, heavy moment. Then he let out a slow breath. "My lawyers will handle it. Legal channels." She believed him. Mostly. The FBI agents came to her campus on a Tuesday, 2 of them, badges out before she'd even registered their faces. Agent Park and Agent Torres, both with the professionally sympathetic expressions of people, about to offer something they believed she couldn't refuse. "We know about the surveillance software," Agent Park said. "We know you've been living with Shin Jae-won for weeks. We're giving you a way out. Full immunity, protection, a clean record." "Cooperate how?" "Testify. Tell us what you've seen, what you've heard about his operations." "I haven't seen any operations." Agent Torres smiled thinly. "You've been inside his apartment, his meetings, his life. You know things." "And if I refuse?" "Then when we bring him down, and we will, you go down with him. Conspiracy, racketeering. You're a smart woman, Miss Mitchell. Don't sacrifice your future for a man who'll move on the moment you're no longer useful." The rage that moved through her was white and sudden. "You don't know him." "We know what he is." "Am I being charged?" "Not at this time." "Then I'm leaving." She turned. "If you approach me again, I'll be contacting my attorney." She walked away on legs that felt like scaffolding over open air. Behind her, she heard one of them say, "She'll reconsider. She just needs to get scared enough." Shin was waiting when she got back. He read her face before she said a word, and she told him everything. He listened without interrupting, and when she finished, he sat still for a long moment. "I'm getting out," he said quietly. "All of it. Legitimate exit, clean transfer, every organization, every off-book operation. I've been building toward it for a year. You accelerated the timeline. You'd really walk away? I already told you." He stood and crossed to her. "You are the only thing I have ever wanted more than control. And control is not worth much if it costs me this." "Then let's finish it," she said. "Together." The exit process was not clean or fast. It was 3 weeks of Shin working around the clock with a team of lawyers, restructuring holdings, cutting ties, legitimizing assets that had lived in grey areas for years. Zara watched him dismantle an empire with the same methodical precision he'd used to build it, and she understood for the first time what it actually cost him. His rivals noticed the vulnerability. They always did. The ambush happened on a Wednesday morning. Zara was leaving an interior design studio where she'd been discussing a potential freelance commission. Something small. Something hers. Kwon was 15 feet behind her, sweeping the street out of habit. She never saw the second vehicle. Arms. A hand. Darkness. She came back to herself in a warehouse that smelled like salt and machinery. Her wrists were zip-tied to a metal chair. 3 men stood around her, and the one in the middle was smiling, like he'd been waiting for this specifically. Ms. Mitchell. Good. We were starting to think you'd sleep all day. What do you want? She forced her voice steady. We want Shin Jae-won to understand that men like him do not simply retire. He needs a reminder. They didn't touch her, but the hours of waiting, of listening to them talk around her like she was furniture, while she tried to calculate every possible version of what happened next, was its own particular cruelty. When the warehouse doors came open, Zara felt relief and terror arrive in the same breath. Shin walked in with Kwon and 4 other men, and the look on his face was something she had never seen before, not even when she told him about the surveillance software. It was the face beneath the face, the one that existed before she'd ever entered his life. Cold, absolute, terrifyingly certain. Let her go. His voice was quiet in the way that a held breath is quiet. Or what? The man in the middle laughed. You've gone soft, Shin. Everyone in this city knows it. Shin's expression didn't shift by a single degree. Last chance. The man raised a gun. Shin moved. Zara would never be able to describe it accurately afterward, only that it was fast and decisive and ended with the man on the ground and Kwon's team facing down the others with a stillness that left no room for interpretation. Someone cut her wrists free. She stumbled forward, legs unsteady, and Kwon's hand caught her elbow and steered her toward the door. She looked back once. Shin was crouched over the man, one knee on his chest, voice low and almost conversational. If you come near her again, this will not be the outcome. Understand? The man nodded rapidly. Shin stood, straightened his jacket, walked out. In the car, she felt him shaking before she realized she was shaking too. He pulled her against him and held on. I'm sorry. His voice was rough. I should have moved faster on the exit. I should have had more people on you. I should have... You came, she said into his shoulder. You always come. Always. He pulled back to look at her, checking, hands moving across her face, her arms. Did they hurt you? No, just the waiting. His jaw tightened. That is enough. On the balcony of his apartment that night, after she had showered and the adrenaline had finally thinned into something manageable, she found him standing with his hands on the railing, looking at the city like he was saying goodbye to it. I saw it, she said, coming to stand beside him. In that warehouse, what you're capable of. And I need you to know that I'm not afraid of you. I'm afraid for you. That thing inside you, the part that went cold in there, it will hollow you out if you let it stay. He was quiet for a long time. The only thing that stopped me from being much worse in there was knowing what you'd think of me afterward. He didn't look at her. That is not a moral argument. That is just not wanting to lose you. Maybe that's enough for now. She took his hand. People grow from the outside in sometimes. You chose differently because of what we are to each other. That's not nothing. That's actually everything. He turned to look at her and something in his face broke open. Just slightly. Just enough. 2 more weeks, he said quietly. Then we're done with all of it. I have a house in Oahu. And after that, New York. You said once you wanted to spend a whole month just walking through every architectural landmark in Manhattan. She had said that, months ago, in passing, thinking he wasn't really listening. He had been listening. The FBI's final move came with a warrant, and 2 agents and a convoy of evidence technicians who spent 4 hours in Shin's building, finding nothing they could use. Every transaction was documented. Every business was clean. Every connection to anything they wanted to prove had been legally severed. Agent Park paused at the door on the way out. "We know what you were." Shin looked at him calmly. Past tense is the important word in that sentence. A week later, Kwon brought news about Marcus. His cooperation deal with the federal investigation had collapsed entirely when Shin's legal team proved the surveillance software had been installed without consent and without a warrant. Marcus was now facing his own charges: wiretapping, invasion of privacy, illegal surveillance. "Is that enough?" Shin asked her. "For closure?" Zara thought about it. About the 2 years she'd spent trying to earn Marcus's approval, making herself quieter and smaller and less, trying to fit into a shape he found acceptable. She thought about who she was now. "More than enough," she said. "I don't need to hear from him or about him ever again." "Then we're finished with all of it," Shin said. And he sounded like a man setting down something very heavy for the last time. They landed in Oahu on a Thursday evening. The house was private, beachside, with floor-to-ceiling glass that looked out over water so blue it seemed fictional. Zara stood on the deck in the warm air and breathed for what felt like the first time in months. Shin came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her from behind. "Any part of you that regrets it." She turned to face him. The photo, the blocked number, the car, all of it. Every part. She thought about the woman who had sat on her bathroom floor that night, mortified, terrified, certain she had made the worst mistake of her life. "Best accident I ever had," she said. "You see me in a way no one ever has. You never once asked me to be less. You never were less." He said it simply. "You just needed someone to stop treating you like you were." He kissed her then, slow and unhurried, with the sound of the ocean underneath everything. 6 months later, they were in New York, exactly as promised. Shin's businesses ran clean and thriving. Zara's architectural design practice was building a reputation. She had a studio in Brooklyn with good light, and a wall she'd painted herself, and a shelf for the awards she was starting to accumulate. When Shin proposed, they were sitting on the floor of that studio eating takeout containers because they'd forgotten to buy furniture for that corner. He put down his chopsticks, looked at her across the dim light and said, "I want the rest of my life to look like this. Marry me." She said yes, with a piece of dumpling still in her mouth, and he laughed so hard he had to put his head down, and it was the least romantic and most perfect moment of her entire life. The wedding was small, Jade as maid of honor, Kwon standing up for Shin in a suit that made him look like he'd been born in it. A rooftop in Lower Manhattan, the city glittering below them. Vows they had written themselves, carefully, meaning every word. On their wedding night, Zara looked at Shin in his dark suit and thought about the first time she had seen him in that back seat, controlled and dangerous, and watching her like she was a puzzle worth solving. And she thought about who he was now, still exacting, still formidable, but soft in the specific way of a man who had found something worth being soft for. "What are you thinking?" he asked, fingers tracing her jaw. "That I sent a photo to the wrong number," she said, "and ended up with exactly the right life." His expression went warm in the private way that was only ever hers. "I received a photo from a stranger," he said, "and for the first time in years, I wanted something that had nothing to do with power. Was it worth it?" He looked at her the way he always looked at her, like she was both the question and the answer. You are what every decision I've made this past year was building toward. So yes, without hesitation, yes. She kissed him and they got lost in each other the way they always did, except now there was no threat waiting on the other side of it. Just them and time and all the room in the world to keep becoming. Years later, when people asked how they met, Zara would smile slowly and say, "I sent a risky photo to the wrong number, and the man on the other end decided I was worth showing up for." And Shin, standing beside her with his hand at the small of her back, would add quietly, "Sometimes the most reckless thing you can do is let someone see you. And sometimes that changes everything." They had built something real from a moment of pure accidental chaos. Found each other in the gap between a mistake and a choice. Proved that sometimes the wrong door opens into exactly the right room. Zara never once regretted that photo. Never regretted blocking that number, getting in that car, or choosing to stay when every sensible part of her was screaming otherwise. Because the safe choice would have kept her small. And she was done being small. Sometimes the wrong number is the most important call you never made. Now I want to hear from you, because I genuinely need to know. If a stranger received your most private photo by mistake and showed up at your door the next morning,
Would you open that door, or would you disappear and never look back? Drop your answer in the comments right now. I read every single one, and your responses are going to shape the next story I write. If Zara and Shin's story had you gripping your phone, smash that like button because it helps more people find these videos, and you know someone out there needs this story today. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss what comes next, because I promise you, the next one is even more intense. Share this with someone who believes in second chances, accidental beginnings, or anyone who's ever done something brave by complete accident. And finally, tell me in the comments about your own wrong number moment, the mistake that turned into something unexpected, the accident that opened a door you never would have knocked on yourself. I read every comment, and your real stories are honestly the best part of making these videos. Until next time, remember this. Sometimes the life you're supposed to have starts with the message you never meant to send.